Hi, I'm Teresa Lisum, and I'm with my amazing guest co-host, Tina Spoletini, and we're evolving women. I'm evolving, you're evolving, we're all evolving. So let's help each other to evolve. And our intention here today is to fill the world with uplifting messages, new perspectives, tools, resources, wellness ideas, mindset shifts, things you may never have considered before, but juicy gems to chew on. And we're here to give you permission to be your best self and live your best life. So welcome. We're so glad you're here. So welcome my amazing guest co-host, Tina Spoletini. I'm so glad you're here, and we can't wait to dig in with some juicy, interesting conversations with you today. So welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me.
So we're going to chat a little bit today around this whole concept of self-care, which we hear a lot of. Like it seems to be a phrase that people throw around a lot. Are they taking it seriously? Do they realize the importance of it? I don't know. That's a whole nother question. But it does seem to be like a hot topic. Now, let me ask you, when you hear that phrase self-care, what comes to mind for you?
So when I was younger, I thought, hot baths, massages,
Mhm.
like really relax. Calgon, take me away.
Yep. Yep.
Today, I think of it more as filling my bucket,
Mhm.
right? Filling my bucket, making sure that I have everything I need to stay strong. And I don't know what the word is, strong, not just physically, but mentally, right? So that
Mhm.
I can take on whatever's going to happen.
I love that. I was wondering if you were going to have those same images or thoughts around it that I had, because like from commercials and advertisements, self-care was like a specialty thing, or maybe you get a massage once in a blue moon. And that was my concept, my original concept of self-care. And it was just a random thing. Maybe it was just for people who are special, or who had time for it or something like that. And now I've learned to realize, no, it's like a daily practice that we each deserve, and we each need to have an awareness around and prioritize, because like you said, we have to fill our own bucket. We have to, what's that analogy from the airplane? Grab your own mask and breathe
Before
in the
someone
oxygen
else
before
did.
you help somebody else. Because if we're constantly depleting ourselves, we have nothing to give other people.
Right. And our generation, I mean, you and I are almost, I think, the same age. We weren't taught, that we had to look after ourselves, right? It
Mhm.
was you look after everyone else. And if there's
Yes.
time and energy, then you can, and I'm sure our mothers, it was worse for them and worse for the
Mhm.
mothers before them, right?
Mhm.
And so now it feels a little bit wrong sometimes, I will
Yes.
be honest, just because
Yep.
of the way we were taught. Sometimes I think, well, years ago they didn't worry about this, but then excuse me, years ago they were also dying before they were 45,
Good point.
right?
Very
Right.
good
And
point.
so, now I think if I'm going to live to 90, like most elderly people are today, I need to look after myself. And I'm sure they all
Mhm.
learned that, right? I remember my grandma taking her time out, right? Like I remember
Mm.
her saying, I'm going to lay down on the couch. You guys need to leave the room, right?
Well, she was a
And
woman on the cutting edge.
yeah, oh yeah, she was quite the woman. But I remember that as like not as a kid, but in my early 20s, I remember her
Mhm.
doing that. And I used to think, good for her, right? Like let's give her
Right.
some space. She has a house full. She had
Mhm.
8 kids, and we were there every Sunday. So
Wow.
if she needed half an hour of peace and quiet, we gave it to her, right?
That is
So
awesome.
I think, as the generations got older, I think they started to figure it out in their own way, which
Mhm.
is really what we should be doing. But we should also be teaching it to our daughters and our
Yes.
granddaughters.
Yeah, oh, good point. I love that.
Yeah.
And yeah, um, oh my gosh, like teaching it in schools. I mean, there's so many things that they should be teaching in schools.
Isn't that the truth?
beyond what they feel is important. Whereas, like you said, it almost needs to start early at a young age so that when, as they do progress through life, they are not being overtaken by health issues, whatever, mental, stress.
Yeah,
And because they have the tools and the means to fill that bucket on a continual basis. It's not a one and done, it's a continual refilling on a daily
absolutely.
basis.
That's right. Absolutely. And I remember, and I didn't do this like with self-care in mind, but when my kids were younger, I had twins. And so we were always, the three of us were together until they were 5 when my third one was born. And even though they didn't nap after 2.5, I was like, I'm going to lose my mind, right? I need space. But how do I take space when I got these two, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I used to give them like quiet time is what I called it.
Yeah.
And I would put them in their room, and they weren't allowed to play with toys. They were allowed to read, or they were allowed to like just be on their own, just to sort of sort their mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed like a big change in them after that quiet time was over. And they were like 3, 4 years old,
Wow.
right? I really noticed that. And I thought, okay, we're going to continue this. And to this day, they know how to take their time. My
Mm.
daughter's struggling a little bit because, I mean, she's 22. I blame it on the age. They're
Yeah.
always out to please everyone else
Yeah.
and do what everybody else wants. But she knows that when she needs that time, she needs to take it.
I love that
Yeah.
self-awareness and
Oh, yeah.
understanding herself and ourselves enough to know, like, yeah, no, I need to be alone. I need to step out and take a walk. I need some type of a break. Not that I don't love you, not that I don't want to be, part of what you're doing, but I need some time to refresh, renew, reset. And it
Absolutely.
can be seen as being selfish, like you said, my grandmother, I don't remember. I mean, I remember her, but I don't remember her taking the time to nourish herself, to fill up her own bucket. I don't even know if my mom did that, but like, so to me, I mean, it was just how we were brought up. It was women, nurture, put everybody else ahead of us. We took a back step or back seat, excuse me. And like, it was probably seen as selfish. Like, no, you're the mom. You're supposed to be out there eating last, you know,
Right?
and putting everybody ahead of you. And, possibly, I don't know, because I can't ask her, but did that feel selfish to her if she stepped up and, fulfilled one of her desires or asked for help or, you know, seen herself as a priority? Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know what my grandma would have answered that to that question, but I remember her taking that time. And I don't know if it was
Okay.
because she had had enough, because,
Mhm.
sometimes, right, I've had enough. Like, I can't do this anymore. And I think, I mean, like I said, every Sunday her house was full because we all
Mm.
went there every Sunday. That has to be exhausting,
Oh gosh, yeah. I
right?
mean,
I mean, you get no space.
right.
Like,
I mean, that's all around the setting the boundaries,
right.
prioritize yourself enough to value yourself, to set those boundaries like you did with your twins, which I applaud you for that. Bless your heart.
Thank you.
Um, to get them to understand really early on that you did need your time, you did need your space, and they needed to respect that. Plus, it gave them the opportunity to be with themselves and maybe have to use their own creativity, their own imagination. So you were, setting the stage and giving them the tools they needed to grow up. And like I said, they still have grown up with
That's
that
right. Yeah.
tool that you gifted them with. So that is beautiful. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
You were ahead of the
It
game as
wasn't as
well.
easy with my little one. My little one wasn't as easy. He would not follow any kind of routine.
Oh,
And so he didn't, that was really difficult with him, right? I couldn't say to him, go sit in your room, right?
mm,
That wouldn't happen because to him that was punishment. right? But
Mm.
he figured it out on his own in other ways,
Mm.
right? And that's what it is with self-care too, right? I mean, you can go to any book, you can search Google, and self-care is listed as, doing this, this, and this. But in the
Mhm.
end, it's whatever is going to fill your cup,
I
right?
love
If
that.
you're not one for meditating, you don't have to meditate,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
If you're not one for journaling, you don't have to journal, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes self-care is going out for coffee with a friend,
Mhm.
right? Sometimes it is in a group. Like, I need to be around people. I need to connect myself with other human beings, right? And so that's what you do.
Yep.
You pack up your, if you're working from home, you pack up your work, you go sit in a coffie shop. You don't necessarily
Mhm.
have to chat with them,
Yeah.
but you talk, you hear talk, you hear that there
Mhm.
is life out there, right? I do that
Mhm.
for myself. After COVID, I had to do that. I had to
Mm.
schedule myself because I felt almost scared to leave the house. And I don't
Mm.
really understand that because COVID didn't scare me,
Mm.
right? But to be around people kind of scared me. Leaving the house scared me. And so I'm
Wow.
like, okay, I need to force myself to get out. So I would pack up some work and I would go sit in Starbucks, for a couple hours, drink a coffee, and I would
Mhm.
hear people and I would
Yeah.
see, oh my God, people are actually going out. And it was so beautiful to me, right? Like, to me, it was
Mm.
like, oh my God, there's still life. Life is
Yeah.
not over
Yeah.
yet, right?
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah, self-care is whatever you need it to be.
I love that. We are social beings, and I love sucking up the energy of other people. You're right. And I need to know, and I need to balance for myself as well. I need my connection, my people time, but I also need my alone time, my time of solitude, my time of processing, whatever. But we do have to have that self-awareness about ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's all part of it. And if you don't have that awareness and that understanding of yourself, then you may not know what works best for you for your self-care.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then once you're aware of it, you need to acknowledge what it is and what you need to do to not fix it, but to fulfill yourself, right? So
And
whatever
share
that's
that
gonna be.
and
Yeah,
communicate that with others in your life.
absolutely.
This
There
is
is
what
nothing
I
wrong.
need.
That's right. There's nothing
Mhm.
wrong with you saying, look, Tina, I'm loving our conversation, but
Mhm.
I really am feeling the need to, walk out and get some fresh air.
Yes.
Right? I'll be
Yeah.
back in 20 minutes, right? There's
Yes.
nothing wrong with that. I might look at you and go, really now? You can't wait for, 10 minutes when our conversation's over. But, in the end, I need
Mhm.
to, respect you. And if you need that, because I don't want you to like start, people kind of, no, I don't want to say go crazy, but when you're not getting what you need, you start to not act like yourself, right? And
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
want that. I don't want to witness that. And I don't want you to feel that way,
Mhm.
right? I don't want you to feel like you can't be yourself.
Right. And do you think the people not taking the time, not prioritizing their own self-care leads to a higher level of stress in their lives?
100%. 100%, right? Because then you start to get overwhelmed and
Mhm.
you don't know how to do anything, right? You don't know how to contain yourself in any situation, right? Everything bothers you,
Mhm.
right? I
Right.
know lots of women that are like, and it's always women. I don't
Yeah.
understand it,
Yeah.
right? But women, they feel like they always have to give, give, give. And then when
Mhm.
there's nothing left, they don't know how to handle
Yes.
themselves, right? So
Yes.
that's when they start to get sick. And, you know, I'm thinking right now, I'm picturing my mother-in-law because she'll get like the flu and then she's forced to be in bed, and she
Mhm.
will actually force herself out of bed so that she can do something so that next week she doesn't have to worry about it.
Mm.
And and I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there are other women out there like that. And I think take the time, your body is telling you you
Yes.
need to rest,
I was just gonna
right?
say, yes, sometimes our bodies are smarter than our heads and our brains,
Yes, there's this book.
and I've
There's a
heard
book
that.
called,
Go ahead.
sorry, I mean, I don't mean to interrupt you, but there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. I
Mhm.
haven't read it yet, but it is on my list because I keep hearing how awesome it is. And it tells us exactly what, our body is telling us.
Mm.
And I
Yeah.
have a friend, she actually says, our bodies talk to us all the time, but sometimes not in English.
Good point. I like that.
right?
And it can
Yeah,
be very subtle and very
right.
quiet until you're not paying attention. And then it might whop you up across the head for
Exactly,
something bigger. And
exactly.
I've heard people tell me that
Yeah,
they almost knew innately deep down that, oh, they were pushing themselves too hard. They were not listening. And then their body stopped them and they had that awareness around it, which I think is really
yeah,
cool. They knew that that's what was happening because they didn't
yeah,
honor that they needed to take a nap when they were feeling tired, or they needed, I don't know, I'm just picking something, extra water when they knew they needed it, and then their body finally like, okay, that's enough. I'm going to do it for you then with a big old in your face issue.
exactly,
Um,
exactly.
And then when and I'm guilty of that as well. I mean, I can't say I
I
pay attention 100%. I wish I had learned to pay attention a lot earlier in my life. But I think when we're younger, we don't think about it, you know?
no, like I tell my daughter now, she'll work, 12 hours. She's a hairdresser. So she's on her feet
A
for
lot,
10, 12
yes.
hours.
Yep.
And then she'll go to the gym. And I'm like,
Mhm.
she'll message me, oh, I'm so tired, but I have to get this workout in. Why now?
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
I'm like, you just spent 10, 12 hours on your
Wow.
feet talking to people. Like, that's exhausting, right?
Mhm.
You don't have to be at work until 12 tomorrow. Why don't you just go home and rest? Put your
Mhm.
feet up and go in the morning, right? No, no, I have to get it in today. And like I said, she's 22. She'll figure that out when she's older,
Right,
right? And
right.
now I'm not saying that going to the gym is bad, because by all means we need exercise. That's part of our self-care.
Mhm.
But, we have to work it in so that it works with our schedule without exhausting us, because I don't believe it's doing you any good if you're already exhausted. You're just making your body more tired.
Right. And I think it's a societal thing too. Society pressures us or gives us these ways of being that don't really align with who we really are. And we just feel that there's these expectations, and, well, everybody else does it, so I need to do it, without really questioning it or thinking it through and how it feels for our own personal self.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're always pleasing others, right?
Mhm,
But
mhm.
once we realize that that's not doing me any good, then okay, now I need to figure out, should I quit? Should I replace it with something that will fill me up, that
Mhm.
everybody else will admire? Or, because if
Yeah.
I'm out there to please everyone else, you know, I'm not getting anything out of it, number one,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
But, sometimes, if I'm doing it just for everyone else, so is someone else,
Mhm.
right? And
Mhm.
so, maybe if I stop doing this, but I do this, maybe that other person will follow. And then we'll,
Right.
start a trend that, where I'm looking out for myself. I'm not looking out for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Give other people permission to do
To
that
do
for
what
themselves or to step back
exactly.
for themselves. So when we do
That's right.
something, we're setting that example and giving other people permission to follow suit. So yeah, I love that. There's so much we could dig into here. Just the fact that you said mind and body, because self-care is both. It's not just going to the gym, which could be, well, it is a body and a mind thing for me, but we have to take care of our mental self-care as well. So it's a combination. I mean, there's multiple levels to it.
Oh, for sure. I mean, mental is a little bit more difficult, I think, to stay on like a good path. I know like lots of people like to meditate. I struggle with meditating. I try it every once in a while. Sometimes it works, and sometimes my brain is going everywhere, right?
Mhm.
But I think meditation can work if you can get in that zone, right? But I think more importantly is getting quiet. Like, just sit in a quiet room and just be alone with yourself and your thoughts, and sort of figure out what thoughts are good for you and what thoughts are not,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Because let's face it, we have like how many millions of thoughts every day. They are not all good for us.
Yeah.
And in fact, I would guess that most of them, just from my own brain, most of them are not good for us.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Like 90%.
Right. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and so I think if I could sit down quietly and go, okay, this is the good side, this is the bad side, whatever's on the bad side thought, just go there. Just, you know, separate them and then say, okay, I just want to hear these thoughts. I wish I could do that, right? Draw the line. Of course, it would be like, you know, probably 3/4 of my face would be the bad side.
Well, and it is a practice. I mean, it's something that we have to keep working at, keep chipping away, keep refocusing our mind, like you said, over to that good side instead of the evil side. It's a constant readjusting. I mean, it's been many, many years where I've been on that journey to make my, or not make, I guess I'll use that, make my thoughts go in the direction I want them to go instead of in the negative side. And that's a whole nother conversation. We might have to tackle that as
Yeah,
well.
exactly.
That whole
I remember,
self-talk thing.
yeah, I took a yoga class, my very first yoga class, and the teacher, the instructor said, you know, at the very beginning of the class, she said, now I want you to take all the thoughts that are in your brain and put them into like an imaginary jar, right? So in my brain, I had this ginormous jar. She said, put a lid on it when all your thoughts are in it and send it outside the room. It'll be sitting in the hallway when you leave.
Yes.
And I was like, this woman must be crazy, because how can I, even imaginary, there's no way I could do this, right? Like it, so it took me a few classes to actually do that. But once I did that, I was like, wow, this is cool. Like I can actually pay attention to how my body is feeling and actually be present. Like I'm not just doing the poses, right? Like I think you're a yoga teacher, right?
I am not. I'm a laughter yoga facilitator, but it's a little different. And that's another conversation too. But I have done yoga. Yeah, some of my friends are yoga instructors. And so I've heard that language before. Yes, put your thoughts in a basket, put them on a shelf, leave them aside, and you know, they're going to be there when you're done, which is so true. I mean, just using your imagination is so powerful that way. You know,
Absolutely.
it gives our brain permission to let him go for a while.
Right. And since then, like I am able to sort of shut the mind down. I was never really a worrier or anything like that, but now I'm able to close the thoughts off before they really enter the main part of my brain. Before I can say what's coming in my mind, I can actually close that off. Right. Where before I started yoga, and that was probably about 10 years ago now, I, you know, whatever came to my mind came out of my mouth. Right. And so I know I offended a lot of people because and the thing is, it's about the way you say things, right? And so when you're not thinking about what's coming out, it just comes out. It's like verbal diarrhea. Like I get that now, right? I get that saying because it just comes out, right? Whereas now I can control myself.
And that's a maturity thing and a life experience thing, and just something we learn to really slow ourselves down and put some filters in place. Although from what I understand, for some people, like you get to a certain age and all those filters disappear again.
Yes, I'm noticing that with my mom. She'll be 76 here in a few months, but I'm like, oh my gosh, who are you and what have you done with my mother?
Oh my gosh, this is so funny. But yeah, we've covered a lot of territory here, and there's so much more that we could go, so much more we could talk about this whole aspect of self-care. So I think we need to wrap it up though, at least for today. And I'm just going to invite our listeners to maybe have some self-care tools in your back pocket, or a couple of things that you can reach for or pick from that can help you take care of yourself on a more regular basis. And I literally have to schedule time for my self-care. You know, like I have a time when I walk in the afternoon, and it's like precious to me. And I make sure I can fit it in my calendar, like, oh, where am I going to put that today? You know, like I'm very conscious of it. So we actually, at least for me, I have to plan it to make it happen. Now, there are moments in our day where we could just take little moments and do some quick self-care throughout the course of the day. So there's, different spectrums of the self-care, the different self-care spectrum, I guess is a way to say it. But so we're going to invite you, our listeners, to, think of some things, explore some options that you can have as your go-to self-care. And if you need to schedule it, but make an intention to prioritize yourself enough to give yourself the gift of self-care. And Tina, do you have any final thoughts around that? I'm sure you have a lot, but
I do. I do have lots of thoughts. But do what's easiest. Start with the easiest way.
Love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something easy that you're going to want to do.
That's
and
right.
convenient. Don't make it so complicated that you're never going to want to do it. So very good point. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to wrap up this episode. I want to thank everybody for being here, being part of our conversation. Thank you, Tina. It's been a
Thank
joy
you.
and a delight. I appreciate your thoughts around this concept. And we look forward to seeing everybody again on the next episode. Bye-bye.
Yes, thank you.